All right. All right. So we're live here with HR Unscripted. The purpose of this process or this program is for us to bring in HR and recruitment experts to talk about a specific area within the field of HR and recruitment that is fast evolving, and for people to take away something of use and tangible about an area that they either were not thinking about or they've been thinking about but did not know how to focus or to move forward on. So this week we have Eva for our very first session. Eva, welcome. Eva is a Neurodiversity Ambassador, and she's also a talent acquisition leader, and she's worked with several companies within the UK. So we're very happy to have you here, Eva, and we would love your expertise on the subject of neurodiversity. Please, can you explain to us, what does that mean? How do you define neurodiversity, and what is the impact?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really thrilled to be here with you guys. Neurodiversity. It's something that I'm actually very passionate about, and I'm really pleased to be talking to you here today. But in really simple way, what does it mean is that we all have we have all differences how we think and how we perceive information. Basically, our brains are unique. In a way how we are wired. What I mean by that is how we perceive information, processes, and then do something with it. So either forget it or come up with maybe some ideas. So when we're talking about neurodiversity, we are talking about exactly these trends, how we think, how we even behave, and these traits give us our unique skills, unique characteristics, which are different, which differentiate us from one another. Quite often, we are talking about neurodivergent people and neurotypical people. So what does that mean? First of all, I'm not 100% sure if I like the term neurotypical person. What does that even mean? I honestly believe we are all on a spectrum.
Yeah.
It just happens that those who we see as a neurotypical, they're more in the center of the spectrum, and for those who are perceived as a neurodivergent, are on the further down on the spectrum. And when we're talking about neurodivergent people, we mean people with ADHD, dyslexia, autism, dyscalculia, but the list goes on and on and on. There is a huge number of different conditions. I can bore you also with some statistics if you want.
That would be amazing. Please tell us more.
So this is really actually common, I would say worldwide, but specifically for the UK, it's estimated that 1 in 7 people has some neurodivergence in them. Also, dyslexia is, by the way, my biggest passion because it's really close to me. I am dyslexic. So in terms of dyslexia, we expecting that there is 1 in 5 people actually in UK who are affected by dyslexia.
Wow.
And why I'm saying that we are expecting or is estimated, because there's such a huge number of people who are actually underdiagnosed, which is quite typical for women. Apparently, women are better in masking these traits.
Right.
But actually, it goes with the other conditions as well. So, for example, to give you really right numbers, for example, for ADHD, we are expecting there is 2 million people in our workforce at the minute, and by NHS. For autism, the waiting list to be actually diagnosed with autism, the list is equivalent of population of Oxford, and the waiting time is 281 days, which probably in practice is a little bit longer than that.
Wow.
So when we are in a group of people, among our friends, among our colleagues, there is really a good chance that at least some of us are neurodivergent.
Yeah, that's incredible. So I think those stats really bring it home to like how every one of us like knows a fair share of people who would potentially fall into that category, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's super interesting. So if we are in the HR context, right, and we often talk about, D&Y, how we can be better in doing inclusion. You are a specialist in recruitment, right? How
Yeah.
would you say that you could like help people with those conditions to go through a recruitment process, for example?
Yeah, a very good question. There is a little bit caveats to it, because not every single person is actually comfortable to disclose their neurodivergent. As we just said, there are so many people who are underdiagnosed, so
Yeah.
they don't even know. They might have some suspicion, but for whatever reason, maybe they don't want to be diagnosed or they don't have the availability to it. So as a recruiter, I believe we should expect that we will have definitely in our pipeline somewhere a good number of people who are neurodivergent. So when we're looking at our processes and how we design them, I believe we should take in context all different learning styles. So
Yeah.
some people will learn by reading, some
Yeah.
people will learn from audio, some people will learn more visually. So if the technology which we have available allow us to combine all the learning styles, I think it's really pretty good, a good start to it. Another thing is, that can come down to any single one of us. Just be open-minded and allow people to create the safe space and allow people to disclose it if they feel comfortable. I would love if my candidates would come to me asking, for example, for questions in advance. Actually, I have never had that in my practice that somebody would
Yeah.
ask me for the questions. I did it myself once in my career. It was denied.
Was it denied? Okay,
It
I
was
was
denied.
curious. Okay, yeah.
But I know that from other people that there are companies who are happy to share it in advance. Of course, as somebody who might be hiring for roles when you need people to think on their feet, you might not necessarily can do it all the time. But to be frank, you're not assessing one skill throughout the whole process. You have different stages where you're looking at different things, or at least you can provide some guidelines. Or even for somebody who is dyslexic, even if you give them the very basic questions, which you as a recruiter asking 100 times a day maybe, but people who maybe didn't haven't been interviewing for a long time, they don't know that you're going to ask it. Just
Yeah.
simple thing, what's the motivation, why are you applying, and the very basics. But if somebody does it to me, it would just free my mind, and I wouldn't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
And I can focus on the other ones which I didn't know about.
I think that's a great point. I think too often our interviews get this sense of pressure cooker. How do you perform under pressure? How good are you at thinking on your feet? I think those could be important characteristics depending on your role in the company, but that's not everything. Like every candidate has, when they perform the jobs, like almost all of us Google, right? Almost all of us, even if you're like a highly technical person, you cannot survive without Googling how to solve a problem.
Yeah.
So we can't take away those skill sets from the candidate when you're assessing that candidate in that session. So I think this is a very good tip
Yeah.
Yeah.
of sharing your questions in advance or asking for those questions in advance.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And on a more general HR perspective, right? I, I've been in HR, and I think we've done some decent work with inclusion and diversity. But to be honest, I feel like I failed a little bit on that specific part. So how can you? I mean, what kind of tips could you give to HR professionals to engage better with this part of the population? Because there's a lot of people. If you have like 500 people in your company, you probably have even 100 people who could, as you mentioned, learn differently, communicate differently. So is there any tips that you could give? Because I didn't see that so often in my career, that we were like taking care of that enough. And I, on your side, because you know that particular topic very well, did you advise your employers in the past, or is there any specific experience, or maybe specific like tips that you could give to the industry in general?
Yeah, very good question. First of all, I feel like we have actually progressed in recent years. It's not like we haven't moved on at all. There is still loads of room to develop.
Yeah.
And it's a kind of tricky one. So I would say the main thing is creating the environment which allow people to be vulnerable, and they can actually trust you. Me personally, before I move on onto the professional side, I have decided myself that I will be really vocal about it, that I'm dyslexic, and if somebody has a problem with it, either if they tell me or they didn't tell me, or nobody really told me. But if somebody has a problem with it, I wouldn't want to really work with them anyway, because it wouldn't give me justice, and probably wouldn't help me to succeed in my work.
Yeah.
I think the really basic start, regardless if we are HR professionals or not, is to be open-minded. Quite often, I'm hearing people after they watch some video or listen to podcast or read something. Oh, now I understand what does it mean to be dyslexic. Or now I understand what does it mean to ADHD. But if you're not a person who struggles with that condition or has this condition, you don't know it. You have learned what does it mean from someone else's perspective, but you can never understand it deeply. Exactly the same way as I will never understand, I don't know, for example, what does it mean to be part of LGBTQ community? Because I'm just not part of the community. But it doesn't stop me to be respectful, open-minded, and supportive towards this community. So, and I don't, as a dyslexic person, I don't need someone else to understand what does it mean to be dyslexic. I need them to support me when I maybe struggle, and be open-minded, that I may be thinking of whatever we're discussing slightly differently than they do. But I need to be open-minded at the same time as well.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And I think you mentioned being transparent about your diagnosis. I think one of the challenges some people may face about that is the potential for like being typecast, right? Or having some stigma about your condition. Have you had any examples like that, or do you know of any colleagues or anyone from your friends or family circle who might have experienced the stigma because people thought they had? And what might that be, and how do you deal with that?
Absolutely. So when I'm talking to people, quite often, especially those who are being diagnosed later in their age, they don't feel comfortable to, not everybody obviously, but some people don't feel comfortable to disclose it because they feel they might be seen differently, or they might be, if it's for recruitment, might be rejected, or people won't respect them, or they need to actually go through the emotion as well, like accepting that they're ready to be diagnosed and deal with it. When me personally, I was diagnosed actually at primary school at I think I was 11 years old. To be fair, I didn't understood much about it at all until probably my 28 years old, something like that, when I first actually started to learning a little bit more about it. But what was quite interesting, the emotion of me started understanding that, for example, my struggle is with working memory. Until then, I thought it's dyslexia for me means that I hate reading out loud. Trust me, it's a torture, not just for me, but for other people too. And also, it's a reason why I read slow. So I didn't understand the other struggles. But what does it do to me? For example, it's quite challenging for me to count from top of my mind, because working memory is in general quite slow for people. But for somebody who has dyslexia, it's even slower. So if I give you actually a very practical example from my recruitment career, when I'm interviewing, sometimes I'm looking at someone's CV, I'm reading what's on it, I'm listening what they're saying in response to my question, then I'm writing down my notes, thinking what actually are they saying, what does it mean for me in context of the job, and I need to be thinking about the next question. So you can imagine it's a lot for one slow working memory. Yeah, and actually, great example. Right a minute. Now I lost my thoughts because I have just been talking about a lot. So if you want to give me another question, that would be great.
That's a very interesting live experience.
Just a nice fine example.
In life.
That's perfect. So I think I do want to. So while we frame this conversation, so I think we're definitely talking about some of the examples of how you can improve your own experience, or how you can be more empathetic. But one of the parts of framing this we haven't covered is like why, right? So other than being nice to people and being empathetic, like why should a business owner or a hiring manager or an HR manager care about having a more diverse team? And on that, I can maybe start you with a cedar, right? So I was doing some research on the topic, and there are some like really strong studies out there. So Hewlett Packard Enterprise did a study on neurodivergent versus neurotypical and productivity. JP Morgan Chase as well did that. And JP Morgan Chase was more focused on autism. And they found that neurodivergent people were on average 90 to 140% more productive than neurotypical people. So it's almost like a superpower. And on the Hewlett Packard study, they found neurodivergent people, which is a more broader spectrum, to potentially be 30% more productive. So again, they don't specify the type of tasks or the nature of work. But I think that is a very interesting stat. Like when you think about neurodivergence in the context of ADHD or dyslexia, most people would not think those numbers, right, in terms of difference in productivity. So I think that's one very economic argument of why you should care, right? So even if it is not about like morality or ethics of it, so to me that was like a very eye-opening statement. Do you have any thoughts around that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course, it's a right thing to do, regardless.
Yeah.
But actually, any help which, and I believe any help which we implement for our neurodivergent colleagues will automatically help to everybody else. Because as we said in the beginning, we are all on the spectrum. So this definitely, and there are studies which showed that companies who are tweaking their processes to be neurodivergent friendly, there is positive effect on their whole teams. In terms of actually building diverse teams in general, I believe it's about diversity of thoughts. It doesn't really matter like what kind of diversity we're gonna talk about. In general, we should have as diverse teams as possible, because every single one of us will have different perspective on the specific topic. And for example, if we talk about service providers, if you're providing a service to the community where you are at, I believe your teams should represent exactly same community, because then you actually have on your teams the same or people from the same communities as who you're serving as well.
Sure.
But the studies in terms of the productivity and also profitability of diverse teams are definitely there.
Yeah, they're quite high. I completely agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So focusing back to the strategies, right? So I think let me recap what you've said already, right? And you can correct me if I'm wrong. So if you are a neurodivergent person, like the way you approach, let's say, recruitment or your workplace, I think one of the strategies we talked about is like being more proactive and asking for support in specific ways. So if you feel that you are challenged in onboarding on something, ask for that support to say, hey, reading too much is too much. Can I have this in a different format, so I can be more productive quickly? Or in an interview, asking for a set of questions up front, and explaining why, right? So this is why it will be make me more effective in that interview session. So that's one. And the second, which is very closely linked, was be just transparent about it, right? And by that, your people who are not empathetic to you, you probably don't want to work with anyway. And if you do, if you are transparent and they want to be empathetic, then it just creates a good, you sets it off in the right foot, and then you can work together and help each other, right? So that's from the person affected. And for the people who are trying to be more inclusive, I think we talked about making more inclusive environment. So potentially, if you have an onboarding process, make it multi-channel. So don't just give everyone a Word doc to read. Maybe have videos and things. So would that cover the strategies we've covered so far?
I would add to the individuals. So obviously, each one of us has some coping mechanisms already in place, but with technology moving forward, there is more and more new tools coming up. I have actually one which I have started using recently myself. It's a text-to-speech AI tool.
Yeah.
I have never been able to read so fast, and I also feel like I'm absorbing the information much quicker.
That's awesome. You want to
really
name drop the tool? What tool are you? Do you want to name drop it?
Yeah, sure. I'm using Speechify.
Speechify. Okay.
Speechify, yeah.
Okay. And so does that work? Is that a plugin to your Chrome browser, or is it like something you download?
Yes, you have a Chrome extension. It actually works on your laptop as well. You have it actually works in a way that you can scan your book. So it's not just electronic documents. So it can work on a paper as well. And the best thing about it, I'm using a voice of Gwyneth Paltrow, so I'm having everything read by Gwyneth Paltrow.
That's amazing. Okay, so you can have your favorite celebrity onboard you. That's perfect.
Yeah, but definitely ask for the adjustments because you're totally entitled to it. And from the company perspective, there is actually a service from or grant from the government, access to work, which the individuals can apply for as well, and obviously get access the workspace if it's good for them, and they can get some grants for any tools which might be able to help them. So look at all the resources which are out there, because there are some. I think they need to be a little bit more accessible, but that's another story. And sorry?
You're talking about accessibility. Maybe we can share the links in the comments of the events for the people. You were talking about the tool you were using, and maybe about the links. That would be great, so people can have a look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm more than happy to share it.
Awesome.
So
there's there's also many groups which you can actually join and get like a peer-to-peer support, which I'm finding quite like helpful as well.
Okay, that's awesome. So if you're a HR manager or a hiring manager and you have the intent, right? So you want to make it an inclusive recruitment and a work environment. What are they, and you don't know where to start, right? So let's say you've heard this talk and you want to do something, you maybe download Speechify for your team, but what are the top 3 things they could get started on right? What would you have liked your manager to have already provided, even if they didn't have anyone who was neurodivergent, but like a boilerplate set of tools that is available? So what are the three things you would potentially change?
Okay, so the very first thing, and it doesn't matter if we are trying to be inclusive or not, is being really diligent about our job descriptions, because sometimes I feel we list all the wish list of everything we want for from our candidates, but sometimes I feel like we need to go a step further and properly revise what is really 100% must requirement and what is nice to have, and then work with your recruitment team on how you're actually going to assess it. Because, for example, if you don't need as much for the role communication skills, why would you have so many interviews in the process? There is different ways and different tools how you can assess the skills which you need to get, and actually be hiring based on skills rather than just experience.
100%.
There is so many transferable skills, so that applies to any recruitment process, not when we just want to be inclusive.
I agree. Yeah, I think that's very applicable to, especially now when everyone's using AI to write their job descriptions, and so AI is battling AI. The people are trying to use AI to write their CVs. So I think that's a very, like, strip it all down, make it all about like what you really care about, and then tailor the process, not just the description, around what it is that you're assessing, right? So if you don't care if the person is a really good orator, don't have 10 interviews. Just maybe do the bare minimum. I completely agree. So that's one. What else would you suggest?
Another one is think about so when, for example, when you have homeworks or home take tasks, think about what format do you really need to have them submitted. Because if we take it back to the dyslexia, if I need to be writing pages and pages, is the recruitment team going to be reviewing it, or the hiring managers to do really detail if they have so many people in the process? And that would be my natural thinking. And then, like, I would want to maybe communicate my outcomes slightly different, and maybe I would want to do a presentation which is more visual. So think about what you really need from the outcomes every single step which you adding to the process, and that's more practical part from the recruitment perspective. If you have the process too long, you might be losing actually good talent. Sometimes I'm even thinking, if I would be bothered to go through such a long process, maybe if it's a job which I really want, but it doesn't matter if it's a candidate-led market or employer-led market. It feels like people always have other choice, right? So maybe for I know that there will be so many people who won't agree with me at all, and it is a little bit controversial, but
This is fine. I think these opinions are important, right? So I completely agree with those. These are super valuable tips. I think we covered tips for both the people with neurodiversity and people who want to be inclusive. And we're nearly at the end of our session. I think we maybe have about 90 seconds. So we want to do a quick fire round of questions. So these are questions that will recur throughout the HR Unscripted. And we're really looking for a way to like give the community some tips on what could be useful for them, not necessarily related to this topic, right? So let's go through these questions, and quick fire answers from you would be amazing.
Cool. So the first one we have, and that again we'll ask everyone, is what have you learned this year?
Okay. So learning is for me is actually AI. I started using ChatGPT. I'm not the best at it, but I'm starting to be a little bit friendly with it. So that's probably one of the learnings. I keep learning about neurodiversity because it's such a wide topic, and I'm actually working on a project to helping people with dyslexia. So I need to do more studying in that space as well.
Okay, cool.
Another one super interesting is like if you travel back 5 years ago, what advice would you give to yourself?
Yeah. I 5 years ago, I would probably say, don't worry, it's gonna work out. So because I tend to overthink and stress about things sometimes for unnecessary reasons. So enjoy yourself, have fun, trust the process, and carry on.
I think that is an evergreen advice. I love that one. I think I will print it out and post it on my.
Yeah, I think it applies to a lot of people. I really feel that. Okay, cool. And maybe the last one. So if you face a challenge at work, do you have any specific like source of information you go to, any website, books you read, anything that you want to share with the community that people could go and have a look at?
Yeah. So from the HR perspective, I always go to CIPD because the information there are quite up to date.
That's
but I tend to as well ask. I have people from different areas who I tend to go to ask questions rather than probably reading everything. So
that's great.
but
right? Yeah.
I don't have like really one specific one, but CIPD would be probably the most common.
That's good. That's good. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It has been such an enlightening conversation. I know it is a 30-minute quick fire, but hopefully you were able to say what you wanted to say about the topic. And hopefully people who are watching and will probably watch later on can get some useful advice and things that they can really apply to make measurable change, right? So I think that's the objective. We don't want to just talk about some random things. It's just hopefully you can apply this and make it real change to yourself and to people around you.
Yeah, I definitely learned a lot. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thanks. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next time. The next HR Unscripted is in 3 weeks. We'll keep you posted. Eva, thanks again. And we'll speak to you soon.
Good.
Bye, guys. Have a good one.
Bye.
All right.